Hey there, Seb by the Realtor here. Are you thinking about selling your home in the Bay Area and you're wondering what disclosures do you need to make about your house? This is very, very important, and a lot of sellers end up screwing themselves by making improper disclosures. If you want to find out how you can make sure that you are making the right disclosures when you sell your Bay Area home, then you are definitely going to want to watch this video. When you are selling a home in the Bay Area or really anywhere in California, you have an obligation to make a full and honest disclosure of all the material facts which are affecting your property. So what is a material fact? A material fact is anything about the property or the area which could have an impact on the home's value or desirability. Now, obviously, there are many things which could have an impact on the value and the desirability of your property, and many of those things you probably have never even thought about. And that is where your good friends at the California Association of Realtors come in, because they are going to help you make a full and complete disclosure when you are working with a realtor. There are two primary forms that we use in the real estate business. One is the transfer disclosure statement, and the other one is the seller property questionnaire. The transfer disclosure statement is actually required by a California Civil Code on the resale of any 1 to 4 unit property. There are some limited exceptions. For example, if you're a trustee selling a property which perhaps you have never visited and know nothing about, there is an exempt seller disclosure form, which is kind of like a subset of the transfer disclosure statement. But most people, when they sell their homes here in the Bay Area or in California, they will be filling out this transfer disclosure statement, which is a pretty simple form. It's 3 pages long, but really most of it is about a page and a half, somewhere in there, with a bunch of boilerplate text thrown in. And it is a series of check boxes and fill in the blank, where you describe what is included in the sale. You let the buyer know about any significant issues that you are aware of in like the driveway and the siding and any fill or compacted soil, right? I mean, there's a series of questions that you are asked about, which are important facts that any buyer would want to know about a home they are buying. So the TDS has been around for many decades, and things change over time, and the TDS form has not changed that much over time. But you know how lawyers are, right? They're always coming up with new and creative ways to sue people, and for that reason, the California Association of Realtors, we have this SPQ form, the Seller Property Questionnaire. Now, the Seller Property Questionnaire is a lot like the transfer disclosure statement, except it is much longer. It is 4 pages, and it is 4 pages almost completely filled with check boxes and blanks for you to fill in. Actually, the SPQ doesn't really have that much in the way of blanks. It mostly has check boxes, and there's a series of yes or no questions. Same thing on the TDS. TDS has yes or no questions, or actually really, are you aware of questions? So the question is always, when filling out these disclosure forms, are you aware of the following? And they'll give you like a list, like, are you aware of any water intrusion in the property? Are you aware of any work which was done to the property which required a permit, but you did not get a permit? And so you would say yes or no. And if you say yes to any of these questions, you are supposed to give an explanation. But here's the thing. The operative question there is, are you aware of? If you're not aware of it, then you don't have to disclose it. You don't have to go and research the permit history of your house, for example, in order to sell it. All you can do is just say, well, I'm not aware of it. So the answer would, in that case, be no if you're not aware of it. But this is a little tricky, because it may be that you are aware of something that happened before you bought the property. Perhaps when you bought the property, the last seller told you that, oh yeah, by the way, we remodeled this bathroom without permit. In which case, you would then, because you are aware of it, have to put on the form, yes, I'm aware that the bathroom was remodeled without permit. Now, when you're filling out these forms, you need to be as thorough and honest as you possibly can. And while the question is, are you aware of this, that, or the other thing? And you say, well, I don't really know, maybe should I mention this? If you're having a thought, if it springs into your mind, should I mention this? The answer is yes. You should definitely mention it. Fill it in the form, and maybe it doesn't really count. Maybe it doesn't really have what you would consider to be a material impact on the value or desirability of your home. But I'm going to go ahead and say you should definitely put it on the form if you have any question about if it should be on the form or not. And here is the reason why I think that. I think that because most buyers, they don't really pay too much attention to those forms, actually. They sort of skim them over. They're like checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. They go through the forms pretty quickly. They don't read them very thoroughly. And how do I know that? I know that because when I'm a listing agent, which is quite often, I'll get questions from the buyer's agent. And when I get a question from the buyer's agent, I know it really came from the buyer. The buyer is then passing question on to, me or the seller. I'll be like, well, actually, we answered that question, thoroughly in the SPQ form or whatever. So I know that they are not actually reading these things too thoroughly. And that's okay, because oftentimes there isn't anything actually that interesting in the disclosure forms. And if you're in the Bay Area and you're buying, you're trying to buy a house, you're usually putting in 3, 4, 5 offers. And before that, you probably have looked at 10 or 20 other disclosure packages. So by the time you're actually, making an offer on a house, maybe you're glazed over a little bit and not paying too much attention to the important details in the SPQ and the TDS form. So a lot of times, buyers are not really paying very much attention to these forms anyway. So I'm going to say go ahead and be brutally honest. Be completely thorough when you are making your disclosures with those forms. It's very, very important because if there should be a problem after the sale, the first thing that a buyer's attorney is going to do is they are going to go and look at that TDS and SPQ form and see what you said in those forms specifically, because those are the mandated disclosures that you need to make, and the attorney will always be looking at those forms first. And here is another reason why you want to make sure that you are very thorough when you are doing those forms. So the TDS form is a legally required document that the buyer must receive. So the buyer has some time to review the TDS form when they are going through the disclosure information. And then after that time, at some point, they will remove their inspection contingency. Or maybe in the Bay Area, it's very common for you not to have an inspection contingency at all, right? So if after the buyer has made their offer and after their inspection contingency is up, the seller then has to go and make an amendment to the TDS, and it isn't necessarily even an amendment to the TDS specifically, because per the contract, any material fact that is disclosed after the buyer's inspection period is up, that is considered a de facto amendment to the TDS. Well, when there is an amendment to the TDS, the buyer then has an automatic extension on their contingency period, even if they never had a contingency period to begin with. So let's just say that you filled out your TDS and one of the questions is roof age. And you didn't put the roof age in that form, right? And then you have to go back and restate the roof age later. Say, oh, maybe it's a 20-year-old roof, right? Well, that right there is a disclosure of a material fact which was not previously made, and the buyer will then have an extra 3 days or 5 days to review that change to the disclosure documents, and they may use that as an opportunity to cancel the contract, to withdraw and get their full deposit back, because you automatically extend the buyer's inspection period by making a subsequent material change to the seller disclosures. So that is very, very important. I've been selling real estate for over 20 years, and I've never ever had a seller get sued because they failed to make a full and complete adequate disclosure. Because while the California Association of Realtors has done a great job printing these forms up and coming up with all the questions for them, it is you will work with me, your agent, to make sure that you have done a great job filling out all the blanks, making sure that all material facts are properly disclosed to the buyer so that the buyer totally is informed about what they are getting, the condition, and any other issues that may be pertinent to the property. For example, pending zoning changes or neighborhood nuisances, you're underneath a flight path for the airport, things of that nature. There are many, many things which you need to make sure that you do, in fact, inform the buyer about prior to accepting an offer on the property. And that is my job. That is my job as a realtor, to make sure that the buyer knows what they're getting so that none of that is discovered during the buyer's due diligence process, which then could potentially imperil the sale and cause it to fall out. And by the way, if you do want to talk about your particular situation and what disclosures you need to make for your home, go ahead. You can call me or text me anytime. My number is here at the bottom of the screen. I'd be happy to talk to you about your situation and what you can do to make sure that you are staying in compliance with your requirements as a seller. All right, that's all I have for this video. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And if by any slim chance you have enjoyed it, you might also enjoy some of these videos over here. These are some of the most popular videos here on my YouTube channel, so please do take a look. All right, that's all I got. Thank you so very much for watching, and please stay tuned.